Hello, we are live here on the Morning Skate Podcast Saturday live stream. It is just me, but I will carry you through a nice slate of action here on Saturday. If you're in the comments, please feel free to stop by, say hi. But we've got a ton to get through. I do want to at least be on to the underdog part by the time the stochastic show kicks off. So I'm really not going to spend a whole lot of time in this intro. I've been cooking up some new graphics in the lab. Um, you know, I, oh my God, look at that. It's a cool little THPN Morning Skate Pod. But all things considered, we've got some partners, we've got some DraftKings. It's going to be a good time, and thank you all for tuning in. So I'm going to start sharing. Basically, the goal is to walk through each of the two main slates over on DraftKings. There is a 3 o'clock slate with 6 games and a 7 o'clock slate also with 6 games. That's about all I have for you. So let's see. That's not the right thing. It's here. All right. So we're looking at 6 games in the morning slate, 6 games in the night slate, if you will. And we also have the overlay. All right. I hate when my computer does this. All right. So we are, very much so learning on the fly, learning as we go here. But in any case, you can see that we have the slate sort of broken out by the DraftKings start times. Again, we'll revisit this as it pertains to the underdog slate because that starts at 5 o'clock. We are looking at Edmonton and Dallas as the opening game. A bit of a banger there as far as what I think are the two best teams in the West as things currently stand. Ottawa, Chicago, Detroit, Calgary, Nashville, St. Louis, Buffalo, Minnesota, and then Florida, Tampa. And although it doesn't show up as, much green or blue here, the Florida Tampa games, can get wild. So I am looking much forward to that game as well. And so just sort of off the bat, a couple things that we do need to take notice of. Edmonton is going to be rolling McDavid with Draisaitl. And Corey Perry, believe it or not. Yes, it is the year 2024, and Corey Perry is skating alongside McDavid and Draisaitl. That leaves the second line to be Kane, RNH, and Hyman. So a very expensive second line that's all sort of wings over on DraftKings, and then the McDry line is about a similar price because Perry's only $2,900. So I'm a little bit I'm a little bit concerned by that, to be honest. I just don't really think that Corey Perry has any sort of juice. So call me skeptic or call me a skeptic, but the idea is that Dallas has been very good. It's not just the last game where they absolutely dominated Nashville. They've been very good for a stretch now leading up to this point. And so, I kind of just want to be cool on this McDavid Draisaitl. And honestly, I'd almost rather be heavier on the Dallas side of action, which we'll cover in just a second. But you can see here, it's been a long going trend that the expected goal indexes have just been very down since about, 2 months into the season or so. But we see that there's basically 3 quote unquote good matchups here. And that's Nashville at St. Louis because St. Louis isn't very good. That is Ottawa at Chicago because, Chicago's not very good. And then Dallas versus Edmonton, which isn't because Edmonton's bad, but it's because Dallas has been very good. Again, it's not just them scoring 1,000 goals against Nashville. That shows up here, of course. And Edmonton has fallen back to the pack a little bit as far as it's just as far as their underlyings go. So, when you get maybe the best offense on the slate at very cheap prices in the Dallas side, I just think that's where I'm leaning. I mean, Rupe Hintz at 5,800 is clearly a boomer bust type candidate. But I just prefer that and having a good secondary stack with it as opposed to this McDavid side. Elsewhere, we will just keep going through the slate in the order here. Ottawa and Chicago. I So we're expecting to no line changes, but we are expecting both Sanderson and Zub to be back in the lineup here, which does take away the minutes from Chabot and Chikrin. We have no guarantee on what the power play one's going to look like, though I would imagine the top line of Norris, Kachuk, and Batherson will remain, 5-on-5 and top line correlated or top power play correlated. Um, and then, it's either Chabot, Chikrin, or Sanderson running the point. I truly don't know who it's going to be. My money would be on Chabot, but, it's certainly risky because anytime you're coming off of such a huge L, like the one they took against Anaheim, you're going to see changes. So, um, yes. And Adam, he's talking about Corey Perry. I don't know. It's the player Evander Kane should be. Like at some point, people are going to respect Evander Kane, but I mean, he's been very good again this season. He's got 19 goals in 49 games. Like, I don't know. Corey Perry ain't doing that. I'll promise you that much. Without a lick of top power play time for Evander, which, I did not see coming myself. And then GA, yep, he summarizes the Dallas with Duchesne line. Sure, whatever. I don't know. They've been outscoring their underlyings for a bit now. Their underlyings have been among the best on the team, but they've cooled off a slight amount. And Joe Pavelski has just been awesome. So I feel pretty strongly that Pavelski, Hintz, and Robertson at their prices are just, a decent amount better than the Dallas second line for about 2K less in total, maybe 3K less in total. And then obviously Heiskanen and Harley. I don't know. I can't really come up with new, exciting things to say about these two. I love pairing them. I love I love the elements that their games bring. And, this is a matchup where they should be able to wheel and deal and will be heavily relied upon. So I don't know. Anyway, thank you for popping in the chat here. So otherwise, we're looking at Chicago now, and like I just feel like an insane person because guess what? This Ottawa team is horrific. Chicago only has a 2.8 team total, which is honestly pretty good. Um, yes, John, I will be updating the right side for the main slate. Don't you worry. That'll probably come when it's underdog draft time, in that 4 to 5 o'clock window. So, yes. And by the way, if you want in on the Morningscape Pod Discord, just shoot me a DM. I'm at Fake Moods. The podcast is at Morningscape Pod. DJ's at DJ_Mitchell94. Just DM one of us. We'll get you a link to the Discord. That is where this sheet lives in its full form. I'm just zooming in because I know it's hard to see on some screens and whatnot. But there's the games at a high level, and then there's some specific players based on my expected fantasy point metric, which is basically just a fancy way of saying I asked Natural Stat Trick to give me all their data for the last 10 games. And, I basically use shot attempts and primary assists to sort of strip out the noise of actual goals and, secondary assists and just sort of see who's putting the puck on net, who's getting dangerous looks, and who's generating offense in a way that is sustainable over long periods of time. That is what the expected fantasy point index does over on the right, which we will dig into sort of after we go through the games. So, Connor Bedard is back. That is the main, exciting factor in this on this slate, I think, because again, I am convinced Ottawa is just atrocious. I mean, the standings also agree with me. The fact that they have a 3.8 team total, that is the highest on the slate. I don't see it. Like, yes, they're probably good enough offensively to deal with these guys. But Bedard came back. He's already playing 21 minutes. I would not be surprised if that rose even in a trailing script. And it might have changed. I'm not sure if McKinnon scored a 5-on-5 goal against Tampa or not on Thursday, but before Thursday, Connor Bedard had more 5-on-5 goals per 60 minutes than Nathan McKinnon, who was like the hands down, well, maybe not hands down anymore, but he's the clear like Hart Trophy favorite. And of course, McKinnon does a lot as far as assists and whatnot. Um, but we're talking about a guy who's 18 years old and is already producing at an elite level in the NHL. 12 fantasy points like last game probably doesn't get it done for you at this salary. But stacking him is really cheap, and we're getting some good correlation between, just like Foligno, Kurashev, and Bedard, given the power play role. I mean, Nick Foligno shows up all the time on my sort of expected fantasy points, and that makes sense. We talked about Corey Perry. Like, Nick Foligno is basically Corey Perry, but is going to be unowned. And so I'm just a bit more, like, I don't know if I'll be playing it on the 6-game slate myself. I'm probably just rolling out one team, and we'll see what comes of it. But I really do think you need to be considering Chicago here. I don't think the proper ownership comes in on Bedard and his friends. He is really a game breaker. And I know I've said this a bunch, and then he got hurt, and he's not necessarily had the dominant season that maybe was in the range of outcomes for him. But Ottawa is certainly about as good of a matchup as you can get, despite all their guys returning from injury. It just has not mattered for them. Like, they've been terrible all season. So just throw some Chicago money lines in there, or puck lines, or whatever you want if you don't want to go crazy in DFS. Yeah, like, Ottawa should not be minus 200 against anyone. I'm sorry. All right, Detroit, Calgary. For Detroit, we are expecting Robbie Fabry back. We don't know what their lines are going to look like, however. You can see they've taken 2 rough losses on the road in a row, heading into Calgary now. I think this is just a wait and see what the lines are. It's unfortunate that this game is at 4:00. Just sort of pulling up what the previous game was. We see that I would say Patrick Kane is still the focal point of their offense, which doesn't really make a ton of sense because, he's playing with DeBrincat, but those guys don't play with Larkin on the power play. And so I don't really know what to do about that. Like, it just seems like a team that's kind of rudderless at this point. And while Calgary is probably as close to Ottawa as you're going to get, I still don't necessarily think that Calgary is, bad enough to be targeting a Detroit team that is very expensive. I mean, the Brinkett price is probably the most shocking of all their prices. But he's been, non-existent. Part of that's with Kane out, all that considered. But like, their main guys, Phil and Larkin, just too expensive. I don't really see a world where you can get to these guys with any sort of reasonable projection or upside consideration, given the other options we have. Like, Draisaitl is, I believe, the same price as 7,700 versus 73 for Larkin. It just doesn't really make sense for me. Looking into the matchup, we see that Detroit's not been generating opportunities. Calgary's been, league average at both stopping them and at saving them. Dustin Wolf was in net for their complete embarrassment against San Jose. It wasn't all Wolf's fault. I will grant you that. But you really got to be sure that, like, this Calgary team is going to spring a leak in net. And I'm not sure that we can that we expect that out of who we think is going to be Jacob Markstrom. They sent Wolf back down. I believe both Markstrom and Vladar are healthy. So I think Markstrom gets the nod, and he's been awesome. He's leading the league, I think, in goals saved above expected because of how porous their defense has been as far as the chances they allow. And he's rocking a 916, which is good on its face, with a 934 over his last 10. So this is just not a spot for Detroit for me. Conversely, Calgary is making no changes to their forward units after their loss to the Sharks. I am somewhat interested in, I touted the Coleman Mangiapane backline line. I didn't play it. I think I had a Mangiapane shots in my card for Thursday. And Mangiapane's been very good, so I'm happy to go right back to that well. But I do think that's the well I'll be attacking. Just looking at the prices, we're getting the slow creep on guys like Huberto. He was 3,600 2 weeks ago, or maybe about a week and a half ago. He's already up to 4,600. Same thing goes for basically all their dudes. Sharon Govich, 55. We're reaching a lot of like local maxima for these centers and wings in Calgary, while we're reaching about the lowest we've seen in a while from Rasmus Anderson and McKenna Uyghur. Um, these guys were 7K a bit ago. I don't think I'm paying this tag for Noah Hannafin or any of these guys, to be honest. But I do think that at least you can argue that Calgary is in a good position. So I'm totally fine taking just another stab at the Manjapani Backlund Coleman grouping. We look at their most recent game, and I don't even know what to expect. But what I'm basically going to display is that even though they're listed as the third line, they constantly come in as either the highest time on ice or like second or third highest time on ice. Like they're not a third line in their deployment, so I would not worry about that whatsoever. Okay. So now we get from there over into the Buffalo Sabres and Minnesota Wild. This game just reeks of sadness. I'm, you scroll over to the right side here, and when you sort the slate by top expected fantasy point players, Matthew Boldy has just been so good that like I don't necessarily think that despite the oh my gosh, like they have a red number next to their index, it just hasn't really mattered for them. They're more than we would like to believe, sort of a one-line team at this point, with Boldy, Kaprizov, Eriksson Ek sort of pulling all of the weight for these guys. Um, and so against the Buffalo Sabres, who are going to be without Owen Power, they're without Matthias Samuelsson. I think you got to at least consider them. Of course, now we're running into a slow hockey viz day, which is not fun. Okay, great. In any case, we move to the DraftKings view of things, and we see that Boldy really hasn't seen a price hike despite his recent run of performance. As far back as a month ago, he was 6,200, 63, 64, and he's still 6,100, and he's coming off of games, multi-point games in each of his last three, and at least 4 shots on goal in each of those games. Kaprizov also dominated the past couple of games, so you probably just want to ride the hot hand here. I'm not sure that I'm really interested in like trying to, go full correlation with like Zuccarello or Johansson or I haven't seen the latest lines, but whether basically the power play is clicking, which it's been a while since we've been able to say that. It's at least looked good, whipping the puck around. And Eriksson Ek, Kaprizov, Matt Boldy, they're not that crazy expensive. There's really no one beyond McDavid that you're like dying to spend up for on this slate, because I don't think Kucherov's in a great spot. And defensively, it's not like we're dealing with a ton of high prices. So I would be perfectly fine basically using a huge block of my salary on just the main 3 Minnesota guys. We're looking for other values in this game, and there's really not much to like. Tage Thompson maybe is a value at 6,000 because he's Tage Thompson, and seeing 6,000 next to his name is a bit jarring. But this is not the best of spots for him. Oh God, GA's already trolling me about Brock Faber. 5,600 for Brock Faber. You know what? Absolutely, be my guest. He's incredible. Yeah, sure. Five shots, 6 blocks. Yeah, definitely. That's definitely in the range of outcomes. And if I know one thing, it's that the Buffalo Sabres exist to make me sad. So let's do that. Freaking Faber. I can't believe this season. Elsewhere on Buffalo, we're gonna get Peyton Krebs on the second line. He's a guy who, when he was traded for, was I wouldn't say he was a Casey Middlestat level prospect, but he was sort of in the same mold of like this guy is, a dominant playmaker who at his ceiling can, carry an NHL line through, not goal scoring, but through playmaking, through his vision. And he's sort of settled into a fourth line like grinder defensive role on the Sabres. And quite honestly, he's been good at it. I mean, they're the Sabres, so it's not a crazy success story or anything for him. Um, but if you're looking for a little bit of, I guess a punt, Peyton Krebs will be centering JJ Paterka, who over his last 10 games has 34 shots on goal and is $4,400. Now, I think the Sabres would be uh, much better off if they literally just handed the reins to JJ Paterka and like this, quote unquote, next wave of young guys, and really just let them grow and not try to jam 20 minutes down the throats of Tage and Tuck down the stretch to close the season. But I don't necessarily think that we can project that to happen. So I'm perfectly on board with going to a Krebs Paterka mini stack or layering on um, uh, Jordan Greenway is the other guy there, which I knew was the reason I did not write him down. So I don't know. Maybe you want to go with Greenway at 2,700 and just spend through the nose on, I don't know, whoever. But I don't necessarily think you have to do that. Again, you can literally build out a lineup that's Paterka, Krebs, and then the main three guys in this game, Kaprizov, Boldy, and Eriksson Ek. And once you plug in a goalie, whatever, Bennington, you still have 4,400 per spot. So you can get a stud and punt 2D. You can, get a good D and punt. Like you can do a lot with the salary. I don't think you need to punt all the way down the Greenway to make something like that work. And then obviously the Edmonton line is even cheaper than Eriksson, Kaprizov, and Boldy as a unit. So I like Peyton Krebs a lot. I do think there's there's definitely a lot of upside there that we just haven't seen given the role that he's been given. But I understand if you don't want to rush into something, when there's a guy like Corey Perry on the slate who is playing alongside McDavid and Draisaitl. It just, there's different elements to how you're trying to build your lineup, but I do think that Krebs is perfectly viable. So 2 more games in the early wave. Nashville, St. Louis. This might be because I didn't look hard enough, but I did not see any changes to the Nashville side of things. If there are, we'll certainly discuss them in the Discord. But of course, note that they're coming off of an absolutely egregious loss to the Stars. Gave up 9 in that one. Things were so bad. I was reading through the Twitter and saw that it was mentioned because Jake Ottinger got pulled last game, and it was like, oh, did he get hurt? And literally the coach was like, no, we were up so much that we wanted to play Wedgwood in front of his mom, and like, I don't know how bad things have to get, but that sounds like, about as low as it gets for a hockey team. Like, yeah, the goalie got pulled because, they're on their mom's trip and, we wanted to let this guy play in front of his mom for a period, like literally like it's like a house league hockey team. So, I'm expecting changes from Nashville. Not sure what they'll look like, but of course you can consider Forsberg, Yossi. I'm a little bit remiss at the Tyson Berry price. He's already up to 3,900. Worries me just a little bit. He was 3,100 2 games ago. Now he's 3,900. Just be cognizant of sort of that sort of price creep. So I love Tyson Berry. He will. He fell off the expected fantasy point list based on that price hike. But I don't know if I love him at $4,000 versus other NHL defenseman level of interest. Looking at the matchups, we do see that St. Louis gives up a lot of expected goals. They don't give up a lot of actual goals. Their goaltending has been very good. And also, this is a team that tends to beat their underlyings. So when we're looking at St. Louis, they don't necessarily look good in expected goals. But I don't necessarily think that there's a ton of reason to like fade Nashville on that regard. Uh-oh. What did I do, Wookie? No Barry. Okay. Um, yeah, no, that's probably a good rule of thumb, especially a 4K, no Barry. And if he's to scratch, then of course you don't want to play Barry anyway. So yeah, I honestly don't know if he had a caps lock on. Okay, no, he just despises the guy. Okay. I was not sure because, Wookie's very dialed in. He's very plugged in. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't tripping over myself and when he was an actual scratch. Okay. Thank you, Wookie. Um, yeah, I need to figure out a way to, just while I'm staring at my screen and all the buttons that are going off, how to like auto switch these, the little uh, I don't know, the little overlays. Because I don't like having them both side by side. I could do that, but it's just a little weird. But just switching between these two would seem kind of fun. I could also just do that. So I made a bunch of overlays. Anyway, if anyone knows how to automate that, that would be cool. Like, oh, just switch from one to the other. Anyway, well, let's get back into things because this is what my brain does when I'm staring at literally 13 games of hockey and new fun tools with overlays and doing a live stream for ones of all my friends. Maybe not dozens, but at least ones of my friends. Okay, back on track. The Nashville side, I think the main value that we will be able to work with is Cody Glass. Back to back 5-shot performances. Again, because they took such a hard loss, it's really hard to know what they'll do in this game. I would not expect them to say change up the power play as a result of that game, but they could. Like, it's not like they're gonna keep everything the same because last game went so well. And we see that Cody Glass is getting that top power play run. And back to back 5-shot games. So playing alongside Tommy Novak, like there's a lot of signals that indicate this guy's like a legitimately good fantasy option. Um, and I'm biased toward Glass myself. Like, if you told me Corey Perry or Cody Glass, like I'm taking Glass probably 9 times out of 10. But Cody Glass is more in the Krebs camp than anything else, where like, yeah, he has this NHL caliber profile, but really hasn't shown it. And maybe this is it, or maybe we're going to get some other, punty Nashville guy like Sissons or even Novak or Nyquist back on that top power play in his stead. So a little bit risky, but that is how I would play Nashville if I were trying to jam in, Forsberg and or Roman Josi. I would definitely tack on Cody Glass to that, just because I'm a believer in his skill set and his talent, and I think the role is there's a large enough percentage chance that the role is the same that he remains in play. Final game of the early slate. By the way, that Nashville St. Louis game is actually on Buffalo, Minnesota. They're each on the underdog slate. So if you don't, if you wind up jamming in Dallas, but you wanted some Tampa coverage or whatever, you can go on to Underdog using code MSP if you get to sign up and hit their drafts with some 5 o'clock guys on the slate. So a lot of options, a lot of ways to get your exposure to the spots you like. Anyway, Florida Tampa, starting off with the matchup at a high level. Tampa's been pretty good defensively. Goaltending has let them down a slight amount, but it does seem as if Vasilevsky is rounding back into form to some extent. Just sort of looking through his game logs, you see that there's really not a ton of stinkers in here for him versus when he came back. I mean, there's multiple games of 4, 6, 5 goals against. Over the last little stretch, he's really kind of turned a corner, I think. And that's, a couple good games against Boston and Colorado where, yeah, he gave up 5 goals combined, but he looked really sharp. I think he's, rounding back into the sort of goalie that we know he is coming off of back surgery. And they're at home hosting a Florida team that we have no issues in expecting them to get volume. They're reaching Carolina levels of shot volume. So, Vasilevsky's price was the first thing that stood out to me looking at this game. 7,200 just seems egregious. But maybe the field agrees, and maybe that makes Florida, viable. So I'm not going to try and 7-dimensional chess my way into a decision there. Sorry, GA got me. Yeah, with no Gensel, probably. Yeah. So on the Florida side of things first, you would expect Barkov and Verhage to stick with Reinhardt. Um, it's interesting that the prices on every Florida piece is basically in order 7,200, 76, 75, 74. Um, I don't think you can play, all four at these salaries. If you do want to bet on them exploding in this matchup, I have no problems with that. I think Florida is, again, probably a top three team in the NHL, just the way they're currently constructed and the way they're currently playing. But you got to give some deference to the Vasilevsky-led Lightning. So when you look at Florida as a team level, Kachuk and Verhage are definitely carrying the load. There's, I guess it's possible that they do sort of go into a more rounded lineup where Rodriguez, rejoins the top line, and they try and sort of spread things out through the lineup. Um, I will say that Florida Tampa games tend to be very meticulously crafted as far as like I would not be surprised if Tampa changed their lines either to sort of adjust to this. And with the game being at 5, there's just a bit we don't know as far as like line matching and sort of how they're going to reconfigure their lineups to compete with one another. But the important thing for Florida is that if the lines stay as they were in Buffalo, we should expect Nick Cousins to sort of step into a second line, second power play type role at just 2,500. And it's just another player who probably isn't that good, um, but it certainly makes a lot work for you. So let me just pull up this Buffalo game to confirm whether or not that's actually the case, or if he played like 7 minutes, a la Oliver Wahlstrom or something of the like. Hmm. Thank you, Hockey Viz, for running fast at all times for me. Anyway, I could just click on his game log. Yeah, 13 minutes of Nick Cousins. Hasn't done much with the role. He had one assist against Pittsburgh, but you know, it's something. And Matthew Tkachuk is clearly turned a corner on his season. A four-game point streak, and just generally looking like the dominant player. And most importantly, I think looking like he's the facilitator on the power play. Um, Something, I don't know if it's weird or abnormal, but like through the run last year, Matthew Tkachuk was basically playing point guard from below the goal line on the power play, um, and that really isn't how the season started for Florida. And as of late, it's basically been Barkov, Montour, Verhage just feeding pucks down to the corner and letting Kachuk sort of direct traffic as a result. So if I had to pick one, I would go with Kachuk, and that's for multiple reasons. Of course, you can play Kachuk with one of his power play mates and say that, oh, Reinhardt's the one who gets 2 goals, or, it's Barkov or, Verhage. But you can also stack Kachuk with a minimum salary Nick Cousins, who, even if Nick Cousins gets you 3 points and Kachuk puts up a 30 bomb, that probably doesn't hurt you that much unless Perry goes for, I don't know, like 15. Because yeah, you can make up 7 points if Perry gets a goal. Like you can make that up with the rest of your lineup without too much of an issue. So I like Matthew Tkachuk. I like Nick Cousins. Um, he's just there. He plays a role, and I think he's perfectly fine for it. And so, given the role he has, he's worth a 2,500 price tag. On the Tampa side, Nikita Kucherov is just, I mean, he's really like, I don't want to say he's making me eat my words because the shot attempt numbers are still down, but it is incredible how basically, I don't know, like somewhere about a month ago, I sort of pointed out that like her shot attempt numbers. I made some tweet about it and I brought it up on multiple podcasts, but basically, like through the first 2 months of the year, or through the calendar year 2023, like 60% of his games he had 10 plus shot attempts, and it was like 15% of the games in the calendar year. And it just doesn't matter because he's putting up points by the bushel. And he's getting those shots on goal. And with the 5 shot on goal bonus being so powerful in this game, I do think that Kucherov is, still the cream of the crop. It's just a little bit concerning when we have the stack Stamkos and Point at north of 7K price tags. This is not a matchup that we should want to be targeting. And we see that Point's pretty low on the list, and Stamkos doesn't even make it. So as much as Kucherov's like playmaking chops are lauded, it has not turned into underlying rates for his line mates. It's more of just, oh well, they'll get 3 points in some games, and that'll be good enough, because of course that's going to be good enough. So in any case, we're looking at a pretty poor matchup for Florida, or for Tampa, all things considered. So I'm not necessarily interested in the Tampa guys myself, but again, just expect this to remain the same. If Hagel gets moved up with Kucherov, he's been unbelievable. So I would be interested in chasing that, even without top power play confirmation. We are expecting Nick Paul to be out, so there is a chance that Anthony Cirelli cedes work to Hagel on the power play. So there's there's your little bit of Brandon Hagel love for the slate. Okay. I want to very quickly, I don't even know what to do in the meantime, but I want to pretty quickly set up my sheet for the main slate, and then we'll get right into the main slate. So let's see. What can we do? Like that. Yeah, in any case, let's see. It did unmute me, right? Okay, I think I'm good. Anyway, the sheet is closer to being set up for the main slate, so just bear with me for a moment. By the way, the data that I'm pulling does come from Occupy Fantasy. You see it on the main tab here, but the index and ownership coming from Occupy Fantasy, and they have the Occupy model. So do check them out if you have not yet. They're a cool site, and knowing what goes into the underlying stuff is something that I very much enjoy. So, and I've been talking to Jack, who runs things over there, and their lineup optimizer and whatnot. It's just a really cool site, and does things a little bit differently than your more bigger name fantasy platforms. So anyway, let's see. Final step is to get the expected fantasy point stuff in here. So let's pull that together. Here's a quick peek behind the curtain. Washington, Montreal. That's not how you spell Montreal, is it? Anaheim, Toronto, Philly, New Jersey. That's the outdoor game, so we'll talk a little bit about what to expect there. Winnipeg, Vancouver, Columbus, and San Jose, and then Carolina, Vegas. So here is, literally, this is my process as far as updating the sheet. Enjoy it. Grab this here, go to my little setup, feeds the formulas in, check to see the players who the names don't line up for, which is very, very annoying. Can confirm. Alex Killorn, we just noticed that he was activated. So that does not seem to have made its way to Occupy Fantasy as time when I refresh the page. But it does not look like we're missing anyone. So here we go. So now we are looking at the main slate, the night slate, whatever you want to call it, 7 o'clock over on DraftKings. Based on expected fantasy points, we see a bunch of Toronto, we see a bunch of New Jersey. And looking at the actual games themselves, let's see, is this? Yep, this is high enough. So if looking down the page a little bit here, we see that New Jersey really has turned a corner. We I believe it was no more than a week ago where we were saying, oh, like they're below average. And then they've come out and absolutely blown the doors off a couple teams. They had a really good game against Nashville, of course, but they also did surprisingly well against LA. And they get a lot of credit for that because LA defensively is very good. So they didn't score a bunch, but, it'll come if they keep getting chances. And then we also see Columbus with just an unbelievable matchup against San Jose, which, we'll dig into. I just really Columbus people. Is this the chalk of the night? Okay. I don't know. Anyway, let's get over to the main slate. Washington, Montreal. I guess okay, if everyone's going to be playing Columbus, does that mean Ovechkin's going to be lower owned? Let's just see. What does the Occupy Fantasy ownership model say? So I'm looking at the top 4 ownership column, I guess here. Oh, well, that doesn't help. And we see heavy ownership on Toronto and pretty heavy ownership on Columbus and Washington, about split down the middle, with Montreal and New Jersey coming right behind them. So that indicates to me is that we're probably going to see Washington and Columbus sort of compete for ownership. I do wonder if, just eyeballing these prices, if the Washington side of things gets a little bit under owned because of the fact that you're trying to fit in Toronto, of course, and that we're looking at guys like Marchenko, Chinikov, Voronkov, Johnny Gaudreau. All of them are sub 5K. And Ovechkin at 6,400, it's obviously going to be tougher to fit in with these Toronto pieces. So I suppose, if thinking through things logically, that we should just be chasing the hell out of this Alex Ovechkin run. He has goals in 5 straight games, people. 6 straight games. Look at that. Incredible. The man is back. He's still shooting a ton. There's been very little reason to uncover as to why he was not scoring to this point in the season. So there you go. There you have it. Ovechkin, good play. We fixed it. Good job, guys. Ovi's back, and he's making a run at Gretzky. Otherwise, we're like, they waived Matthew Phillips to fit in Sonny Milano, and I have not seen actually what their lines are going to look like, so bear with me as I scroll through that. Do we have... Okay. Expect him to play with Scarbosa and Max Pacioretty on the 3rd line. Okay. So... I was not expecting to see that, to be honest, which means, I guess, the 2nd line, McMichael, Wilson, or McMichael, Oshie, Mantha is going to stick. Okay. So Sonny Milano on the main slate, 2,500, sure, whatever. I do wonder what this team looks like without Evgeny Kuznetsov. They're clearly looking for someone to step up and to fill a void. Against Colorado, it was not Connor McMichael. I don't really like. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why you play like. I'm trying to piece my thoughts together here, but basically, I'm not sure what the team is looking for as far as getting productive value out of their forward grouping. So I do think there's a window of opportunity for somebody, and maybe it's not Scarbosa himself, but that line of Scarbosa, Pacioretty, and Milano. Clearly, Max Pacioretty, if he gets the sort of ice time that he probably deserves, given his offensive prowess on this team that desperately needs some, he can get there. And he's 4,700 playing with 2 minimum salary guys. So I think that it's perfectly reasonable to stack, say, Ovi with Patches for that top power play, and then just throw in a Sonny Milano, because we know that Milano can do it in the NHL. He's 2,500. he's not going to project well anywhere as far as I'm concerned. And I believe there's clearly a role there for somebody to step into. It's just like a middle six contributor. So um, that is sort of where my head's at on the Washington front. Of course, John Carlson, 6K is always in play. He's double bonus, triple bonus candidate even on most nights. And against Montreal, there's certainly no. We've seen this matchup before, haven't we? We did. Yes, we did our live stream. We did our live stream for this Tuesday slate where they played Washington, and we had our guy who was super into Mike Matheson. I remember that. Okay, so anyway, if I had to pick a side, it's Washington, but of course on the Montreal front, Nick Suzuki continues to play a boatload of minutes. Him, Caulfield, Slavkovsky, it's still being juiced up again. Slavkovsky, $4,500. Is this what you want to chase up the leaderboards or chase up the pricing boards? I don't know. I don't think so, but that's as slight underdogs at home. I just don't think Montreal ownership is warranted. And the last time I thought that, they scored They scored 5 against Anaheim. Yeah, they won 5-0 against Anaheim. Caulfield nuked the entire first line nuked. So there's your canary in the coal mine. I don't think I'm interested, having just talked about Sonny Milano chasing Josh Waugh around. I like the player. I like the role alongside Newhook, but with Newhook's price taking a leap and on the top power play, and Josh Waugh's role really not solidifying, I would rather just take a stab somewhere else or on Sonny Milano. Going to Anaheim and Toronto, we saw Toronto play a game where, before the slate, we were like, okay, do all these guys have mono? Like, it's such a weird situation. And then they go out and Marner plays, Tavares plays, Nylander plays. They get they get into a bit of a barn burner with Philly of all teams. And Austin Matthews says, don't worry, guys, I'll carry the load for you. And so with that in mind, I don't necessarily think that there's like a dominant line on Anaheim to be worried about, like there is the Konechny-Couturier duo on Philly. But I do wonder a little bit if Toronto is just a little overvalued for sort of what their prices are on the slate. Like Austin Matthews at 10K coming off a natural hat trick is going to be unbelievably popular. And, I'm going to talk about this Winnipeg Vancouver game, but the fact that that game projects as a 5.5 game total, like I understand it. The goalies have been incredible, so there's been no goals. But you're talking about guys who are several thousand cheaper with similar ceilings, in my opinion, who are going to be virtually unowned as a result. And so I think if I were to pick a path through this slate, it would be to sort of more, mid-tier stack it. Okay, as far as damn, I missed that. Okay, Tavares is definitely out. So thank you, Wookie. Thank you, everyone. And yes, Adam, that was you on Mike Matheson. Tell your brother we said hi. Okay, so okay. I'm sorry, I missed this Toronto thing. So let me recalibrate. You see, when you're too busy in the lab building up these nifty graphics, some things slip by you on your Twitter alerts. So do we have the lines? Yes, Bertuzzi, Domi, Nylander. Okay, so that makes it pretty clear that Bertuzzi is going to be the John Tavares. I made this joke on the pod on Thursday, so apologies to the dedicated listeners in here. But anytime you play a dude and the production team has a montage ready of obvious goal chances that he's just missed, ready for the first 5 minutes of the game, like they had, I think, on Tuesday, you've made a bad play. And so, look, Bertuzzi's fine. He should step into a top power play role, but the dude is snake bitten. He's not that good. and I think he'll be very popular with the value he provides, that Jake McCabe provides, and the Austin Matthews, Marner, Nylander projections that'll be through the roof on this slate. And guess what? Anaheim laid a stinky egg against Montreal, and then they came back and clobbered Ottawa. Which team are they? I don't know, but it's probably somewhere in the middle. They've been fine defensively. Let's see. I can scroll a bit over because my camera's blocking it. They've been fine defensively, and the matchup for Toronto is not that much of a standout. Now, does expected goals matter when you have Austin Matthews? Arguably, no. But this is just a weird thing on the slate where Toronto has a 4.3 team total, and the next closest one is Columbus at 3.5. And as much as I love Austin Matthews, as much as I love as much as I love the players on Toronto, they are a defense-first team that is operating without their top offensive defenseman in Morgan Rielly. And the only reason they scored any goals the past couple of slates is because Bobby McMahon scored a hat trick, because Austin Matthews put the team on his back to score a hat trick. This is not a team that is generating a ton of chances, a ton of sustainable offense beyond Austin Matthews. And you look elsewhere on the slate, and there's not a ton of terrible matchups otherwise. And none of these teams even cracked 3 goals. New Jersey 3.3, and then San Jose 3.1. Beyond Washington, who we already talked about, and New Jersey, who's playing in an outdoor game, everybody else on the slate is below 3 implied goals. And that doesn't make sense to me. Like, I think that I'm betting on one of these teams to outscore. I'm betting on one of, let's call it, Anaheim, Philly, Winnipeg, Vancouver, Carolina, Vegas. All those teams, 3 goals or fewer. I'm betting on at least one of those teams to put up like 5 or 6 here. There's a lot of good matchups. There's a lot of poor defenses in the mix. And so with all that context in mind, I think that I'm very much interested in fading Toronto and looking elsewhere. I don't think I'm fading Toronto to jam Anaheim, just given the way that the slate plays out. I think if that happens, if Anaheim smashes, then Matthews or Nylander probably smash. Not to mention, the possibility that McCabe and Bertuzzi also get there alongside those guys. So if anything, I would play maybe Domi, Nylander, and Bertuzzi. But otherwise, I think I'm generally out on this game. Another guy we've been tracking, Minchikov, another 16-minute time on ice performance last game. Just not enough there yet. If he grows into that 20-minute role, we love him at his current price tag, but not a ton otherwise. Philly, New Jersey, with the Jack Hughes, Nico Hischier unit, like sort of, I guess, back in the fold, they've looked very formidable. Generating chances, generating offense. I think I'm leaning toward the Jack Hughes side of things. Toffoli has really regenerated his season. He started off hot, got really cold, and now back into a bit more of a hot streak for Toffoli. And let's see. Eric Howell fell off the list. That's sad. But Eric Howell is somewhere, right off this list as far as his expected fantasy points over the last 10. So keeping an eye on that as far as okay. I'm just reading chat now. Wookie going back to Toronto. Liljegren getting power play 1 would make a ton of sense because McCabe stinks. Yeah, he did last game, didn't he? Okay, so that was a one-hit wonder for Jake McCabe, huh? Yeah, in any case, the role that Bertuzzi plays is far more similar to the role Tavares plays. On Tuesday, when we saw everyone out, Domi played the flank and, in place of Marner, and Bertuzzi played the net front role in place of Tavares. So I would be almost certain that it is going to be Bertuzzi, Liljegren on that top power play with the main 3. Okay. Anyway, thank you, Wookie, for keeping me honest. If anyone else sees anything, please do let me know, because I don't want to be spreading false info. But if you have the nuts and don't want to share it, I also get that too. Okay. Philly, they have a couple good players that are incredibly reliable, that don't have the prices to match. I think this game goes one of two ways, and like I mentioned, one of these teams I think comes out and smashes. As far as this game and the next few games we'll cover, without these crazy high implied team totals. But Philly, if they smash, it's very easy to see where it would come from. Just sort of eyeballing some game logs from Tippett and Konechny, they've continued their unbelievable runs of production. They both rank somewhere in the top like 20. I think Tippett's top 10 as far as iCourse per 60 on the year. They're doing absolutely everything from a fantasy standpoint and don't appear to be coming in with much ownership whatsoever. 8%, which again, when we get such concentrated offensive output, 8% does not worry me at all. Like you're not saying, oh, well, it's going to be, 10% this line, 10% that line. If I get it wrong, like the worst thing about DFS is when you nail the team and they score 9 goals like the Stars did, but you're sitting on, let's say Dallas won, who didn't do much of anything in that game. Like there is no worse feeling in that because you just realize like, oh yeah, like, I just, I basically took my opportunity and I blew it is sort of how it feels. And this Philly team is just so freaking reliable that it's going to be Tippett, it's going to be Konechny. If they score 4 goals, one of those dudes is going to have a usable game, if not both. So given the slate, given the way I'm seeing things, I do think Tippett and Konechny are an elite duo. I don't necessarily think you need to pair that with Sean Couturier at a similar price tag. Now, of course, he sort of like he got nicked up last game, so that's not going to hold into this game. But just looking through the other options, like Morgan Frost is too expensive. Farabee's arguably fairly priced, but I think he's too expensive because I'm an anti-Farabee person. And then like Atkinson, who cares about any of the rest of these guys? So I think you go the main two Philly guys. You maybe tack on Drysdale or yeah, I guess it's just Drysdale, huh? Because maybe it's Zamula. No, okay, no, never mind. That's last Saturday. So Zamula in, Walker, Steeler, Drysdale, Sanheim. Okay. Jamie Drysdale playing 20 minutes is fine. I don't love it though, so whatever. And then I think I already discussed New Jersey to some extent, but I lean toward Jack Hughes. I'm not sure why he's down at 8,700. He's done nothing but produce since coming back from injury, and his price has gone from 9,400 to 8,700. I'll take the discount, I think, and we'll take him over. Wondering which Toronto line's going to produce between Matthews and Nylander. All right, I don't think there's anything else here. Andre Palat, maybe that Cardinal ride is finally coming to an end. Yeah, I don't know, but would need to do some more work there. All right, Winnipeg and Vancouver. I'll start with Vancouver because they're at home. But honestly, again, going back to the matchups here, they both look really, really intriguing to me. Just because, again, this game is listed as a 5.5, and I promise you, there's not going to be much ownership coming into a game that's a 5.5 total. And so, yes, goalies matter. They're people too, kind of. But these two offenses have been clicking. These two power plays, I think, should be better than they have been for the last stretch of games. And, yes, I understand that Vancouver's been, continuing to score goals, but it's not been through a strikingly hot power play by any stretch. And so the prices just make a ton of sense to me as well. Kyle Connor sub 8,000. Mark Scheifele 6,400. Like this dude, like all these dudes have 30-point ceilings. I said I would talk about Vancouver first. Patterson, Miller, Besser, Lindholm. I mean, these are all the dudes. Höglander finally got the top line boost to 3,500, so it's a bit less interesting there. But he finally didn't score last game, instead putting up a measly assist and 3 shots. What was interesting though is that with Dakota Joshua out, Höglander did step into a power play 2 role. So you could argue that that does enough to Hoaglander's, I guess, floor as far as his opportunities go, that he's in play, um, even at 3,500, because per minute he's one of their best players. Of course, it's just a matter of him getting the ice time. So I would strongly consider both of these lines, though. JT Miller finally dips back below 7,000. Like these are the sort of things that like I just love. I don't know. Maybe it just is a maybe I just feel sharp for it, but like getting guys who are 8,000 a month or yeah, shit. Two weeks ago they were 8,000 and are now 6,900. Like that just feels good. Home matchup, it's going to be a fun game, I think. And so getting that, getting Besser, just whoever you want from this game makes a lot of sense to me. I think the obvious fade is Quinn Hughes. Dude has 21 shots plus blocks over his last 10 games. Just doesn't do enough to, even if he does get 3 points, doesn't really do enough to separate because he's so unlikely to get you a shots bonus or a blocks bonus. So yeah, the main guys in Vancouver, Hoaglander, it's all in play. Winnipeg, though, Josh Morrissey is maybe a sleeping giant. I mean, he's got some. I was looking at it earlier, but I won't waste your time. Basically, he's got some decent looking underlings without a ton of production to show for it, or I mean, any production to show for it, I should say. With just 3 points in his last 10 games, and none of those being on the power play. In any case, in addition to Morrissey, though, I like Kyle Connor. I like Mark Scheifele a lot. I think that price tag is my favorite. Just because we know that he's going to play 20 plus minutes in almost every instance. He's going to be very much attached to Connor. And we have not seen the explosion from Kyle Connor upon his return to the lineup. And I just think it's coming. I mean, he has 2 points in the. Yeah, look at that. He has 2 points in 9 games since returning from injury. And there's really, again, you look at some of their underlings as a team, and it looks pretty good. And like, it's not just the Adam Lowry line doing things. So I think that this game is really ripe for a bit of an explosion spot. All right, to quickly wrap things up here: Columbus, San Jose. We did see some reconfiguration to a Marchenko, Chinikov, Voronkov output once again. Let me see if I can pull that up because I'm not sure if that came with the power plays or not. Okay, yeah. So Gaudreau, Jenner, Roslovic, Johnson, Sillinger, Bemstrom, and then power plays. We saw Kent Johnson with Gaudreau, Jenner, Boqvist, Werenski, Voronkov, Chinikov, Marchenko, Severson, Provorov. So setting aside the fact that these are obviously very stupid, because there's no need for Severson and Provorov to be on a power play on a team that employs Jack Roslovic, for instance. Not to mention, I'm sure there's an even more egregious exclusion. Yeah, like Sillinger. Where the hell's Sillinger? I don't know. This team is an absolute mess. Like, it's a 3.5 team total. They're going to be chalky. We showed how they're projecting 12%, which I think it's higher than that. I think it pushes 20 on guys like Gaudreau, maybe 25 even. I think I'm interested in chasing that second line, the Marchenko, Chinikov, Voronkov line, if anything, in this spot. I'm just, I don't think you are playing Sillinger, of course, given there's no power play role. And I don't really know which of the D-men to pick from. Werenski's probably the best. I mean, 54 shots plus blocks in his last 10 games. That's very good. But Provorov, Severson, Boqvist all seem fine. And so I think if I'm doing something here, just clicking game logs to see if anything pops out, but I think I would just stack like the Russians. I mean, literally just go across the board here. Voronkov, Chinikov, Marchenko, Provorov. There you go. That is where I would lean to myself. I'm not overly like okay. I want to play Andrew Peak almost every time he's on a slate because he just seems to blocks bonus every time I play him. Um, and I do wonder if the fact that they're using all their D-men on the power play mean that like his minutes are just very insulated because he's going to be a bit more of a defensive piece. The main problem is with punting a spot like that, though, is that the Sharks don't shoot a ton, so there's just not a ton of blocks equity in him. Anyway, so yeah, the Russians are it for me on Columbus. Boone Jenner's been fine, but I think a lot of his run or a lot of his what you're going to see here comes from the last two games. In that, he has 3 goals and like 15 shots over those 2 games, and there's not really much before that. And so maybe they turned a corner, maybe Gaudreau's fixed, but I'm not really buying it. And then the final thing that I wanted to note from this game is that we just saw confirmation that Kevin LeBanc is playing. Did we see lines, however? Yes, we did. Okay. And, okay, third line. Philip Zadina, the 4-point man himself, Philip Zadina, alongside LeBanc. Okay. Anyway, the main thing of interest here is that I believe William Eklund is sort of reaching his final form. He didn't make it onto here, unfortunately. But without Hurdle and Couture, he is playing an absolute boatload, and really looks like a star NHL player. With Eklund, it's never going to be just him though, which is a bit unfortunate considering we want to use that for value and whatnot. And the other guys that we like for value, namely Zetterland, is on the other line. So I don't really think there's anywhere to go. But the fact that I like Eklund makes me think that maybe the Columbus side is just a little bit overvalued. San Jose is at home. They're only Columbus is only a minus 148 favorite here. Like it's not that big of a difference between these two teams. And the field is treating it as if this difference is massive, like 15-20% owned Johnny Gaudreau just does not feel good. So if I were, I guess, doing anything here, I'm considering Granlund at 5,400, which is ridiculous, of course. But again, the matchup makes sense, and he's going to play 21 minutes against a terrible, terrible team, alongside Zetterland and let's see, yes, Duclair. So yeah, Duclair, 3,500. You know what? Never mind. This game's a little bit too expensive for me. I think again, just comparing it to Vancouver and Winnipeg, the prices aren't that different when you consider Hoglander is around, and the Winnipeg pieces are pretty cheap as well. So yeah, I don't think anything there. Finally, let's just do Carolina Vegas and then rip some underdog drafts. So Carolina is the only team on a back-to-back here, which is meaningful. Last game, they moved Jesper Fast up to the top line, 2,500. I don't think he makes it into consideration, but he did play 16 minutes. If you need it, it's there. He was alongside Aho and Svechnikov, which meant Teravainen dipped down to the third line, leaving the Nachas, Bunting, and Jack Drury line intact. So that's the second line. That's what I would prefer to attack here. Vegas is not going to have Shea Theodore. As soon as they have Shea Theodore, trust me, you'll know about it. But I don't really want to target anyone on Vegas. I respect Carolina too much for that. And I learned my lesson playing Barrett Hayton and friends on last night's Showdown slate. So yeah, it's pretty much Carolina or nothing for me here. And the Carolina guys that you like are Nachas, Aho, and Jarvis. And they're spread across 3 lines, Jarvis with Stahl and Martinuk. I guess Teravainen technically was on the 4th line then, huh? Because the Kotkaniemi line is kind of their 4th line. Yeah, what do you know? Anyway, Nachas, bunting, top power play bunting, second line bunting, pretty good. And then Jack Jury. Just I think that's what you want to do here. No need to spend up on Aho or anything like that. So if anyone has any other questions on the slate, yeah, Vegas has Miromanov. I know. I just feel dirty touting him because um, I don't know. He's Yeah, you know what? I really like Miromanov. He just never has hit the ceiling that like I kind of want my D-men to feel like they can get 20. And this is dating back to last year. When Miromanov was up. I just never seen that happen for him. And so with Theodore being so close to returning, like I really don't want to get my hopes too high on anything on the Vegas side of things. But yes, that is a good point, Wookie. Okay. Let's see. Do we have some goalie shenanigans? Wait, we do. Who was the other goalie that was being projected? What in the DraftKings? Okay, well here you go. Martin Jones, 6,500. There's your goalie. Du jour. Okay, well thank you, Wookie. I would have noticed that at probably 6 o'clock and been very upset that I did not mention it. So, anyway, yeah. By the way, go check out sonk.ca if you like more hockey data and analysis. I know Wookie tweeted it earlier, so yeah, that's I'll pull it up here in case anyone watching has no idea what I'm talking about. Yeah, some vizzes, whatever. Just give Wookie a follow and check out his site because that's where you get the best stuff. We're all trying to be like Wookie in terms of our data visualizations, but I'll be honest, I can't beat that. So let's shift gears over to a couple underdog drafts. Let's see. Yes, so we can see on the screen here, there's a bunch of options for tonight. For now, we're just going to do a couple of these $5 drafts, but I will be firing a couple of the 25s as well, starting at 5 o'clock. So first things first. Actually, let's just join and see what things look like. Waiting for one more. So the order, which again, reminder that this includes all of these games. So Nashville, St. Louis, Buffalo, Minnesota, Florida, Tampa. Actually, does it include the Nashville? Yeah, it does. Okay. And then the main slate. So there's a lot of teams. Matthews, Kucherov, Kaprizov, Vasi, Jack Hughes, Eriksson Ek, Kachuk, Nylander, Forrest. Okay, so Wookie gets a 101. Congratulations to Wookie there. Let's see. Let's make this overlay go away. And we'll zoom in a bit. Okay, Wookie dropped the website. In any case, find him on Twitter, and that is the easiest way to support him via Patreon and get access to the Discord, which is really cool. All right, so looking at the board, I don't know that I want to take Kucherov at number 2 here. I do feel like Jack Hughes is a really good option after Matthews. Let's see, what's the best sizing? I really want to chase this Matthew Tkachuk thing, but I could slip him around to my second round potentially or in other drafts later in the first round. Let's go with Jack Hughes. I do think he's probably the best one. Like he's the best guy who you don't need to really stack around, in my opinion. So I'll let someone else get Kucherov, who will inevitably bury me, despite what is an unbelievably difficult matchup. Mike, we just did 2 slates. What more do you want? You want guaranteed goals across what slates? I don't know. I mean, everything I've said has already been a guarantee to hit, so don't talk to me like DJ. I need someone here to yell at. That's what really keeps me on my game. What the? Okay. Yeah. In any case. So Matthews, Hughes, Kucherov, Kaprizov, Nick Suzuki, and then Olsen goes Forsberg, Yossi. Boy, what is Harris doing here? Let me see. Steven, mean for early win DK promo. Let me log into the sportsbook app on my phone and see what. Just make sure there's nothing specific about it that I would need to know. Mike, you are playing Connor Clifton. I get that. He's the exact sort of bad player. Okay. So the early win is a stadium series. Get your money line bet paid out if your team goes up 2 goals. Oh, yes. Matt Tkachuk came right back to me in the second round here. So as far as the outdoor game goes, just pulling back up the sheet for a second, it does. I mean, based on New Jersey's numbers, pretty much alone. Obviously, Philly is a bit of a lower paced team. It does seem as if there's, I don't know, by my sense, it doesn't feel like a game where there's going to be a ton of lead changes. I think if there were one, though, it would be that New Jersey comes back to take down, Philly. So I guess by that logic, sorry, I'm just trying to. Yep, I'm good with taking Samson here. It's probably a bit of a reach because I could get him in 8 picks, but I didn't feel too strongly about rushing into another decision. So, based on the early win promo, sort of the mindset is it's a money line bet. It's almost there's just really no difference in like the only case it matters is if there is a 2-goal lead change. And so I think that given the pace New Jersey plays at, given the players on New Jersey, and given the system New Jersey plays, it's far more likely that Philly sort of takes the lead and then New Jersey comes back than it is vice versa. Just because Torch will be having his dudes lay down in front of the slot as soon as they get up 2-0 in an outdoor game. Like that's going to happen. So I suppose my lean would be Philly. Let's see, they are plus 120, minus 144 for New Jersey. I don't know. It seems a little thin to base that off of anything. I would say if you had a lean in the game, just don't stray from it because of the early win promo. But if you do, if you are just looking for you to pick one, I would say that the flyer side is what I would bet for the with that in mind. Anyway, back to the underdog drafting here. It does look like we might get a Dahlin to fall back, which I mean, Dahlin going at 11 is a little weird to begin with. But looking at the rest of defense, there's really not a ton that I would want. Okay, Dahlin goes. Okay, I'm fine to punt D then, and I'll take my final forward. Yeah, I'm just gonna full stack Florida and sort of say, yep, they score 5 goals. These are the dudes. Jack Hughes obviously gets there. And then I can pretty much just do whatever I want as far as the rest of my lineup is concerned. So as far as goalies, I would target just basing it off of the expected shooting percentage. Um, Minnesota goalie, obviously a good spot. Is the Florida goalie a good spot? I think I'm going to overrule in this case. Maybe Vegas goalie, just sort of bet on volume there. What do we have? What do we have? Minnesota's off the board. Do we have a confirmed starter for? Okay, I'll look at. So I'll grab John Carlson. And now I will go to the Twitter machine and see if we have a starter for Vegas yet. 9 seconds, people. 9 seconds ago. There we go. This is why you tune into the live stream. Aiden Hill confirmed 9 seconds ago. So I will star Aiden Hill. If someone steals him from me, I guess that's my fault, but Wookie is after me, so he can't. Let's see, and it's just Sam Olsen. Okay. What Ducks line would you play if you had to leverage to Jones chalk? Let me just make sure they didn't change anything up dramatically now that we're. Yeah. So Killorn's back. Do we have. No, I didn't think so. So the main problem is we simply don't know what Anaheim's lines will look like. So Vetrano, Terry, McTavish, Carlson, Henrique, Strome. Do they kick Henrique down to third line center? I wonder if Leo Carlson was actually playing the wing or not. Okay, so this draft complete. Aiden Hill. So Jack Hughes at the second pick. Grab Kachuk, Reinhardt, Verhage for a Florida stack. John Carlson one off Aiden Hill. That's a good start. We'll run another one, maybe two more, before the 3 o'clock slate on DraftKings starts. Yeah, I mean, the other interesting thing is, look at last game. Once again, we see that the McTavish Terry power play unit just simply never got on the ice because they're not the top power play. So I suppose that would lead me toward the Henrique Strome Carlson line. And now if Killorn plays, I wonder if Ryan Strome doesn't get moved to the third line. So it's Killorn, Henrique, Carlson. I don't know, man. Anaheim leverage feels a bit thin, to be honest. If you really want to game stack it, what I would do, game stacking wise, is probably play Domi, Nylander, Matthews, Bertuzzi, and then maybe play like a Fowler and Vetrano 2-man or something like that. And that's basically saying, okay, yeah, the field's going to be right on Toronto, but it's going to be because Martin Jones fails and the game goes crazy as a result. I don't think I would say, oh, well, Anaheim's just going to dominate. Like, that just doesn't seem all that likely to me. GA saying Chucky Ton. That's right. It's always Chucky Ton. He's awesome. Wookie leans toward line 2. Mason McTavish, hometown narrative. Okay. Why Domi? I think he's the clear role beneficiary of. Well, if you're trying to play Matthews, I think you need some punts. And I would rather play Vetrano in a game stack than anyone else, I think. So let's just, I have 4 picks. Let's just build what a game stack would look like. I do think you kind of have to play Matthews in a Toronto stack. Actually, maybe you don't need Domi because Zul'Jurgen exists, but let's just flip between those in a sec. So Fowler stinks, but I don't know. We're stacking. We're stacking Anaheim, and I think that makes the most sense. All right, I'm on the clock. We go Kachuk. We go. Let's just go Nylander. I like that. And that leaves us the backdoor, final pick Bertuzzi or something if we want it. Okay, so we are talking enough money just with, I don't know, Demko, sure. 3,800. You can take out Domi. You can move in Matthews. Like, this is fine, I suppose. I just don't really think that there's I just don't know that there's enough there to really be like trying to stack Anaheim. I don't know. I guess maybe that doesn't make sense, but I don't really like the way that lineup looks. GA wanted me to click Faber. I will never click Faber. You may have all the money. And yes, Mike, I wish everyone could play on Underdog. I wish I could do pick'ems. Can you imagine how much fun I would have sitting here, just wasting all my money on freaking Underdog's pick'em menu? I mean, hell, Dane Cleaver. I don't even know what the hell this is. Is this cricket? Yeah, it's cricket. That's incredible. I mean, yeah, it's absolutely magic land over on Underdog Fantasy. That is a big bopper. I mean, you know what they say about the Morning Skate podcast. We are fans of big boppers here. Speaking of which, look at that. Am I right? Am I right? Partnered with Underdog Fantasy code MSP if you need to sign up for Underdog, and you can play pick'ems and or the drafting. Okay. What are we looking at in this draft? Matthews, Kucherov. The Kucherov team goes Boone and Johnny Gaudreau. Kaprizov goes Forsberg, Yossi. GA goes Eric Tanek, Boldy, Konechny. Nolson goes Hughes, Ovi. Okay. All right. So I don't think I'm going to stack around Florida. Yeah, I guess Marner with Nylander. Probably got to take that if it falls at, the freaking 18th pick. And I did mention the Minnesota goalie last time. I'm confident there's enough centers in D that I can pick a two-man that I like here. Starting Pedersen. I'll star Mark Scheifele. Then I'll star. Ooh. Do I have it in me to start Quinn Hughes and pick him? I don't think so. Otherwise, I mean, what does Lolchagren look like as far as his underdog output? Doesn't really hit much. I don't know that he hits much. Does DraftKings have that? I have no idea. In here, 41 hits in 35 games. Okay, so he doesn't really do much hitting. Probably a bit too thin. Certainly not on Montour. Screw it. I would take Quinn Hughes if it came down to it. Ooh. Wait. Oh, I missed Morrissey. He's way down there. Yeah, I think I like Morrissey straight up over Quinn Hughes. So let's see if I can get that Scheifele Morrissey mini stack in. to close things out. I bet I will. Anyway, it does seem like a pretty fun slate over on Underdog. I guess, yeah, I would say keep an eye on these Winnipeg guys and Vancouver guys, especially in the 12-man drafts. Sorry, I didn't hear goalies. See like GP Helly. As far as DraftKings is concerned, I'm just a little. Yeah, I like Hellebuck. I would say if I was playing Hellebuck, I'm probably trying to play that with a Shifley, Morrissey, Connor, or some mini stack there. I don't necessarily want to just pick that one. Pick him solo, I suppose. It's going to be really hard to avoid Martin Jones at 6,500. I mean, he's just such a huge favorite, and we know how that works. Goalie points are so random that yes, he could fail, but like so could any other goalie. It's not like you're really paying for safety. So I like Aiden Hill. We got confirmation he starts 7,400. I think I would prefer him straight up over what's his face myself. I guess it's interesting that the Carolina goalie is also cheap. Seems like a weird slate as far as goalie pricing is concerned because Aiden Hill's 74 and I guess it would be Spencer Martin. We don't know about Freddie, right? He's not back. Let's see. Shifley, Morrissey. Okay, so let's see if a mini bottle rocket will fill because I want to see what the deep part of drafts looks like. This is the $5 12-man draft on Underdog. Looks like it's 500 to first place. And then once this closes down, I will sign off and quickly build the 3 o'clock lineup on DraftKings. Two more on Underdog for the mini bottle rocket. Oh, I was gonna say. I mean, we have a handful of people here. Maybe you people haven't seen my newsletter. I haven't had a post in a bit, so don't worry, you're not missing anything. But I just wanted to highlight that if you liked this, if you like thinking about gambling on hockey, fantasy hockey, I have a newsletter. It's moods.beehive.com. It's also linked in I believe it's my pinned tweet on Twitter. I'm at Fake Moods, but I plan on recapping the Monday. Well, we'll see what the Monday slate looks like. They were advertising a 111 like flagship contest for the All Star break, but if I go into the lobby, the silly thing about the 111 is that like the early slate had a 111, so I used one of my tickets for that, but it was only 70 people, so I don't know what the Monday slate will look like. But in any case, upcoming is this Tuesday Barn Dash with 200K to first place, so I'll definitely be recapping that over on my newsletter. A few of the things I've covered were the last 111 slate. I happened to win my Fantasy Hockey World Championship qualifier seat, so I wrote about that and also about the contest itself. And then, I fixed the Edmonton Oilers before they got good. They didn't do what I said to do, but I can still take credit for it, right? And also earlier in the year, same idea. The Abominable Snowflake, the 888 contest, just sort of running through it. Just musing about the slates and how I think about things going into them. You can see it's pretty in depth, a lot of good stuff. So if you like this sort of thing, I do hope you'll check it out. All right, we are live in the $5 bottle rocket. Matthews, Kucherov, Kaprizov. Oh, I didn't get to take Jack Hughes. Yeah, I feel boring, but I think I like Kachuk over Eric Sinak. So let's just keep taking Matthew Kachuk. JJR. Why do I feel like I know that? Got Willis, GA, Sam Olsen, and Count. Yes, Mano. So we have 9 games to work with for this 12-man draft. I believe that's right. So yeah, we'll be dipping pretty low in the down the player pool here. Let's just do a quick scroll by position just to set the stage. So if we say maybe 12 to 18 centers, we have 1, 2, 3 drafted, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So yeah, we're still getting guys like Seth Jarvis, Elias Lindholm, completely undrafted. I mean, not completely, but likely to be undrafted. I don't think there's anyone way down. Maybe Gabe Velarde. I could see that being worth a selection with Kyle Connor if you miss Scheifele somehow. Actually, it's probably going to be Ehlers on his line, isn't it? It's probably not a big deal. Yeah, I think there's a Seth Jarvis is about as low as I'd be willing to go. Not a huge deal. The wing position, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 taken. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Slavkovsky drafted either higher or more often than Kyle Connor. Yeah, just okay. I suppose we would need about 24 to 30 wings, so that gets us down to about the Svechnikov range. Nachas going undrafted. It's pretty good. Secondary Columbus certainly in play. Voronkov, Marchenko, or something of the sort. Brock Besser all the way down here. Very hit or miss, of course, but I mean, Jesus. Not sure what that projection is based on a game where first place gets $500. It's not like a double up. Okay, I think that's about as low as we need to go. The Brock Besser though is definitely a worthwhile selection if it comes down to it, and I would honestly consider. I'll star these two just in case I can get them later, maybe after the third round or something. So with 12 teams, just waiting for Wallace to make his pick here or to auto draft. Who knows what he's on? I suppose if we are still here, stars, expected lines. Oh man, he takes Gustafson. Okay. I really don't want to take a one-off Mitch Marner. That just seems silly. Let's grab Verhaeghe. Pair him with Kachuk, and then probably try and grab a Werenski or Carlson with my next pick in 8 picks. We'll see if I get to them or not. Be okay with Matheson too, I suppose. And then I guess what I would want to do at center, I could go Pedersen over JT Miller, or even Pedersen with JT Miller and just skip Brock Besser altogether. Yeah, that's interesting. I wonder Just seeing how many teams have drafted centers already. I'm wondering if it's more in vogue to go one wing, two wings, whatever. Okay, so John Carlson made it down to me. So I will take him at pick 29. Quickly looking at the board. Nothing crazy yet. Marner went right after me. Barkov, Orensky, Reinhardt, Point, Suzuki, Dawes, Demko. Suppose this is also a good way to look at it. GA grabbing Boldy, Caulfield. Willis grabbing Brock Faber right after me. To go along with his Eriksson Ek and Gustafsson picks. It's interesting that MKR takes Kucherov and then doesn't take Point, gets sniped on Point, doesn't take Stamkos. Whatever. People are weird. I forgot just how absolutely impossible the 12 pick drafts are to fill time between especially without DJ, who I could have fill time doing anything. But we'll soldier through this one and then shut it down. Wow. So Faber, Hedman at Liljegren. Interesting. Helene at Liljegren. Okay. Marchessault, Pedersen, Matheson, Stamkos, Slavkovsky with Cole Caulfield, Quinn Hughes with Pedersen, O'Reilly with Forsberg. Yep. And whatever the hell this guy's doing. Svechnikov. I suppose that's a good selection. Okay, so does look like JT Miller's going to fall. I mean, not fall, but he is going to make it to me here in the 4th round. Tippett, it's another good value. Yeah, like Connor Scheifele, Miller Besser, those seem really strong right here. Otherwise, it's center. I mean, I guess Sam Bennett you could take just because I've already made a bet on Kachuk. But yeah, let's go JT Miller and see if Besser makes it back to us. If not, I have no problem playing Miller alone. He's probably going to bring someone along with him if he gets 3 points, but he could easily go. Miller scores 1, assists Pedersen, assists Besser, and those guys don't necessarily make it into the optimals. So, and with so few entries, I mean, we're talking 450 entries. It's not like you need the absolute nuts anyway. So I'll try and get Besser. If not, I'm more than happy to settle for Kyle Connor. Kyle Connor goes. And goalie wise, probably just list Aiden Hill, Martin Jones, Bob. Any of those I would be fine with here. So let's just grab Besser, lock in our skaters, and wait 14 picks. Anyway, for the early slate, we have Pavelski, Hintz, and Robertson. And Harley Heiskanen. So no surprises there. Corey Perry. Yep, so everything looks as expected in the 3 o'clocks. Let's see, Ottawa. We knew what Ottawa. Yeah, we just don't know what Ottawa's power play looks like. Damn, really milking this clock here, aren't we? So Eden Hill goes. So Lopez grabs Elias Lindholm to go with his Hagel, Svechnikov, Dahlin, Liljegren. Okay. Let's see. Matthews, Reinhardt, Point, Connor, Hellebuck. Wonder if he just plugged in some rankings to auto or not. Or you could land the plane with Montour. Nope, Montour's gone. Okay, I see. Probably Morrissey. MKR goes Kucherov, Werenski, Suzuki, Pennington, Tage. Sure, just 5 goals. Maybe it'll work. Kaprizov, Barkov, Lindell. Yeah, Lindell, interesting. Toffoli, Jack Hughes, Marner, Demko, Bratt, Nico Heischer. So definitely betting on New Jersey for Day Shush. Kachuk for Hagee, Carlson, Miller, Besser, goalie for me. Eriksson, Ek, Gustafsson, Faber, Kyrou, Thomas. I like Willis's team. Fassi, Gaudreau, Hedman. Fassi at the 1-7. Interesting. Tippett, Gudis, Dahlin, Hagel, Liljegren. We talked about that team. Forsberg, Yossi, Marchessault, O'Reilly, Eden Hill, Nylander, Ovi, Pedersen, Hughes, Strom, Kemper, Boldy, Caulfield, Matheson, Staff, Mers, Ken Johnson. Okay, that's gonna be. Yeah, no, I wanted to talk a bit about Ken Johnson, but Jesus, I talk so much about everything that I'll just have to save that for a later date. But it's just another player where I can't believe the role he's being asked to do. It just makes 0 sense to me. But yeah, he's certainly good enough to make anything work. Konechny, Jenner, Stamkos, Montour, Bob, and Jake Neighbors. Okay. Sure. Okay. So it looks like the goalies have cleared out. Yeah. Could just take a different goalie. But I will take Martin Jones and just say, yep, screw it. Goalies don't matter. All right, guys. Thank you to everyone who tuned in and stuck it out for this long. Hopefully, you got something of use from it. Please do, if you are somehow new here, follow me on Twitter. I am at Fake Moods. Host the Morning Skate podcasts. You can find that on your podcatchers of choice. And yeah, be sure to follow DJ as well at DJ_Mitchell94, the anointed underdog puck king, and get in the Discord. Just shoot me a DM if you want the link to it. And then lastly, sign up for Underdog, sign up for Puck Luck using code MSP. And if you somehow don't have a DraftKings account, we are sponsored by DraftKings. Use code THPN to sign up, get $200 in bonus bets. So yeah, that is all I got for you. Thank you all for tuning in. Best of luck on this Saturday, and we will see you.